welcome. You're watching this Budget Day special show. I'm Padmaja Joshi, and one of the big ticket announcements today was related to what has flummoxed many of us for the good part of the last year: cryptocurrency. For boomers, it was like waking up to a whole new world. What is cryptocurrency? And now, after years of wavering on its stance, it seems that cryptocurrency has finally got a backdoor entry in India. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman announced that the RBI will soon release a digital currency using blockchain platform. More importantly, that income from that virtual assets will be taxed at 30% and 1% TDS will also be deducted on these investments. Now, by recognizing crypto as a taxable asset, the government has acknowledged its existence along with other virtual assets, since obviously it cannot tax something that is illegal. While some have welcomed the warming up to digital revolution, others ask whether the 30% taxation is a harsh levy that could actually end up discouraging trade in such assets. But keeping in mind that it comes amidst apprehensions of a ban at one point, permission to even exist, even if it comes with a high tax rate, is a bit of a breather. But by doing so, the government has also ignored the repeated public warnings by RBI itself on crypto assets. Now, the critics are questioning the rationale of this decision. Does this mean that crypto has been legalized? How will the centre ensure that the risks associated with private cryptocurrencies are addressed just by taxing it at a higher rate?
I said the Reserve Bank will be issuing a digital currency. Currency becomes a currency is a currency only when it is issued by the central bank, even if it's a crypto. But anything which is outside of that, loosely all of us refer it to be cryptocurrency. They are not currencies. So let's first understand we are not taxing currency that is yet to be issued, and that provision is now made, and the currency in the name of digital rupee will be issued. Exact name you'll get a bit later, but Reserve Bank is the one which is going to issue it, and what Reserve Bank issues is the digital currency. There will be a transaction, TDS, imposed on every transaction in the crypto world, any transaction that is happening outside. So the distinctions are very clear. Currency is only with the Reserve Bank. That will get issued sometime this year. The transaction happening in the crypto world are of different kinds of assets, and for that, every transaction gets taxed.
So what does this mean? How do you navigate this brand new cryptoverse? Nischal Shetty, founder and CEO at WazirX India, is joining us along with Anoush Bhasin, crypto tax advisor. Vikram, Subburaj, co-founder and CEO of cryptocurrency exchange. Rohinton, Sidhwa, partner at Deloitte India, is also with us. Nischal Shetty, I want to first ask you, if the government is now going to come up with its own cryptocurrency, what happens to the existing ones?
I think look, even the FM has said that, and it is, getting more and more clear to everyone that the government wants to create a digital version of the INR, and that's a CBDC, a central bank digital currency. While the rest of the crypto that exists today, most of them are assets or utilities used for specific use cases on the blockchain and on the protocols for which they are built. So there are two very different things. In fact, you can look at the prices, for example. The prices of digital assets, they keep fluctuating. Whereas central bank digital currency is supposed to have stable, 1 rupee will always be that the same value, 1 rupee. So the use cases are different. For payments, for example, you'll be using the central bank digital currency, and rightly so. You don't see payments in crypto haven't taken off in India because they keep fluctuating in value. It's very hard for someone to have a mental model of how much to pay in a particular crypto. So crypto gets into the domain of as an investment, as an asset that you can buy and sell. And you can use that on the blockchains for which they're built. And that use case cannot be replaced now, let's say, with a different currency. Because, for example, if you have Ether, which belongs to the Ethereum blockchain, and you want to run any program on the Ethereum blockchain, the only way you can do that is using Ether. So that's where the use cases are very different for a currency versus all of the utilities and the assets that exist on the blockchain. There is no worry for any of the existing crypto assets when a government decides to build a CBDC. And in fact, I think I've been, in fact, one of the biggest proponents pushing for a CBDC in India, because the rest of the world is already doing it. And I think the faster we do, the better, because this also gives INR the opportunity to be a global currency. The moment it is on the blockchain, any website, anyone can integrate INR globally. They don't even have to be in India, and they can start accepting INR. When that happens, I think it's going to be a really big boom for INR in terms of transaction processing on the internet.
So I was reading that this is not something that is unheard of. It is happening in EU. It is happening in a couple of other countries. How does it work there? Do both currencies, digital and real or physical, exist side by side? How do the two of them interact? Anoush Bhasin, what is the global precedence for something like this?
Sure. So how most governments or regulators are building their CBDCs is by choosing a particular blockchain and building a token on top of that. They would have to ensure that if a certain amount of currency is put into circulation on chain, then that much currency needs to be taken out of physical circulation, because they cannot exist side by side. It would lead to double counting. In terms of how they're doing it, most regulators are looking at what are the most popular protocols, whether it's a permissionless protocol like Ethereum, or it's a permission protocol which is being built by IBM, for example, Hyperledger. Or it's probably a protocol that they would like to build themselves using certain distributed systems. It is really a decision that they're working on currently. But most importantly, what we need to consider is that these currencies will work. Will be solely backed by the sovereign. These are currencies which will interact in combination with physical currency, in combination with the digital currency as we know now, which is like, what works on the UPI, on Bheem, on Paytm and other processor apps. So in totality, the government will be then issuing some currency physically, some currency on the current digital system, and then some currency on the blockchain.
So how do I benefit from using crypto instead of just the usual currency, Vikram, Subburaj, especially when I have to pay 30% tax and then 1% TDS on top of that?
See, the CBDC might not come into the bracket of taxation, because at the end of the day, that's going to be treated as a currency. And currency is not going to get taxed, right? And you have to look into CBDC as not a form of an investment. At the end of the day, just like the rupee you're going to have in your wallet. Now, how you're going to benefit is the technology through which you're going to benefit. See, when UPI came into being, what became easy was the ease of transaction. Right now, but still UPI has got a lot of disadvantages. There is a limit at which you can transact in UPI, because UPI transactions have issues in quickly reconciling. Now, this real-time transaction and quick settlement can easily be enabled through blockchain, right? So using that power, a lot of, what Nischal was quoting, if international transactions can be enabled using the CBDC, that's a very big thing, right? It also opens up doors for INR being a currency that can be transacted internationally. But that's a long-term game for any currency to get into. But even in domestic instance, using a blockchain where you can clear quickly, settle quickly, will be a lot useful when there's a huge amount of wholesale transactions which are happening.
Also, repeatedly, Mr. Sidhwa, we have heard concerns about security. In fact, very recently, at the beginning, in the middle of January, there was this entire scam unearthed in Delhi itself, where you had a businessman whose crypto was hacked, and then it was traced back to the Hamas, no less, in Palestine. And despite that, now we have this push by the government. One, did it surprise you? Second, what has the government done differently to ensure that all the red flags raised by the RBI earlier are taken care of?
So, firstly, this digital currency which the central bank will be issuing, it will be under the complete control of the Indian authorities. So they will have a complete record and ledger of all the currency that has been issued, and therefore they will be able to reconcile it, they will be able to track the payment. So I don't think security is another issue. Padmaja, I also want to kind of acknowledge one thing with regard to something that you mentioned earlier about the legality and the illegality of taxing it at this juncture, because crypto is still not formally recognized today in our Indian laws. So under our taxation law, even illegal income can be taxed. In fact, there are old cases of gold smugglers where the profits from the gold smuggling was also brought to tax. So there is no bar on taxing these profits, and there is no legality which gets imposed on crypto because of the fact that it's acknowledged in our tax law. So I just wanted to make that point in addition.
Okay. All right. But did you find it unexpected, considering that we still have security concerns?
So I guess the security concerns primarily stem from the ability of a regulator in India overseeing the exchanges that today trade these cryptocurrencies. So I think as and when, the TCS, for instance, is exactly one step by the government to bring some sort of transaction trail back to them so that they are able to oversee and overview what transactions are happening on these exchanges. So reporting and the TCS, to my mind, will greatly allay any apprehensions with regard to security.
All right. Nischal Shetty, there have been experts who have favored a tightly controlled cryptocurrency regime over a blanket ban, which would also regulate the market and help the government generate revenue. You think all of those issues have been taken into consideration by the government?
Yeah, absolutely. I see. Look, regulating crypto is not a straightforward thing, and it's just not India's problem. It's a global problem, and if you look at any of the large economies, they're still in the process of regulation. So there is no magic regulation today. So the question is, how does a nation go towards regulation? And a lot of them are now sitting and they're discussing regulation. I think we need to give credit to what has happened in India today, which is, while we ponder over what is the right regulation, what are the right things to do, the government has taken a really smart approach of bringing in clarity on taxation. And we have gone from worrying whether there will be ban or regulation to now discussing, and now we are on the path to regulation. So I think that's something that has not happened anywhere. And we should really give credit to India for doing that.
Okay, full credit, but we've basically gone from worrying about a ban to worrying about why 30% tax, Vikram Subburaj. Isn't that really steep? In a sense, it almost seems like they're trying to discourage cryptocurrency. You're saying, okay, we are going to allow it, but we don't really want you to do this.
Yeah, so the question is it steep? Yes, it is steep. It's taxed at the highest slab, but you ask anyone who's been in the crypto industry for the past 4 to 5 years at least, they would not say this. They would only look into a positive frame that, okay, so they've not banned it. It's the first thing that they will think, right? So the direction at which the government is going, that is much more important, right? So that is going to define how crypto is going to grow in India. The 30% tax, yes, it is steep. We are hoping that going forward there will be more considerations there. But having said that, it is not going to curb trade as people envision, right? Because there is a lot of upside that is there in crypto, there is downside as well, but people look into crypto for the upside that is there. And for the upside that is there, 30%, it will still keep the trade going alive. I don't expect this to curb trades or kill the industry per se.
Final question, Rohinton, Sidhwa. There was also the Congress which today asked, how can you even float this idea without bringing in a legislation? Is one to assume that this is basically an announcement and a legislation would be around the corner?
So, as I said earlier, there's no real estoppel for taxing a particular income. So, I think the legislation can follow. What the government recognizes is there is some income over here which formally requires to be taxed. And they've just gone about making sure that they tax it the correct way. So I don't think there's anything wrong which has happened. As I said earlier, even illegal income can be subject to tax. So it doesn't really matter as to, having such specific provisions to tax it. Also, the 30% rate, typically if you are a trader, you you would actually end up paying 30%. The only dispensation with the lower rate is for capital gains and long-term capital gains and short-term capital gains where the rates come down lower. Here, it's clearly not treated as a separate capital asset per se. It's treated as a virtual asset which will be taxed at the flat 30% rate, which is also the rate which incidentally would have been applicable if you were just a trader.
All right,
so I don't think it's anything unexpected with this kind of rate as well.
All right, so the consensus seems to be it's a step in the right direction, even if people are a little wary and, may I add, a little confused also about what really is going on with crypto. We are just about trying to make peace with digital payments, at least one generation is. Now you've got crypto also to deal with. But to help us at least crack a bit of that mystery, thank you very much, Nischal Shetty, Anoush Bhasin, Vikram, Subburaj and Rohinton Sidhwa. Thank you. Taking a quick break.